Your Excellency Philemon Young, President of the 9th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government and leaders of delegations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Every member state of the United Nations relates to other nations in the world in three dimensions: cooperation, competition, and conflict. And how we manage our relationships on these dimensions will ultimately determine the kind of world we will create for the children of tomorrow. So when we sit in this chamber to deliberate on the cooperation or competition or conflict between member states, we are actually designing and deciding our future. I am therefore glad that the theme of our debate this year touches on all three of these dimensions, because the bottom line is that in all three we can and must do better. This year's theme calls on us to act together to advance peace, sustainable development, and dignity. This is a call to stronger multilateral cooperation. But if we are serious about cooperation, then we must act with urgency in fixing and reforming the United Nations and other multilateral institutions. And one fix that we from Africa demand is for the United Nations to embrace democracy in the Security Council by giving 2 permanent seats to Africa with veto power. When I first made this call in my inaugural address in this chamber, I was delighted to hear President Biden also announce that the United States is in favor of this reform. Similarly, when I met President Xi Jinping of China 3 weeks ago, I was delighted to hear that he too is in favor of stronger representation of the interests of developing countries in the Security Council. So, Mr. President, the time to fix this is now. We need this fix to strengthen our voice on the issues that matter to us in Africa. In the 4 years that I have been president, I have declared state of national disaster every year because of climate change impacts that we cannot solve without multilateral cooperation. And for one of those years, I was chair of 2 development communities, namely the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, and the Least Developed Countries, LDCs. And I learned firsthand that no nation can survive a global crisis or develop in the face of shocks without strong multilateral cooperation to sustain it. Even this year, I see how challenging it has been for my country and for Malawians. Coming off the back of the state of national disaster that I declared last year to secure international cooperation in response to the devastation caused by Cyclone Freddy, I had to declare another state of natural disaster this year to secure international cooperation in response to El Niño weather conditions that have destroyed crops in 3/4 of the country's districts, leaving 1/5 of the Malawian population without enough food to last the year. And this is happening in the face of devastating trauma we have suffered as a nation for the past 3 months, from the tragic death of our Vice President, Right Honorable Dr. Saulos Klaus Chilima, in a plane crash, whose cause is yet to be established by the German experts we have asked to investigate the accident. Yet another example of the necessity of international cooperation. Even the great strides of development we have made over the past 4 years have been facilitated by strong international cooperation, whether it be the 4 road corridors and hundreds of secondary schools we are constructing through our cooperation with the United States, or the M1 road, we are rehabilitating and expanding through our cooperation with the European Union, or the railway line system we have revived for the first time in 40 years through our cooperation with China, or the orthopedic and neurosurgery hospital we have developed through the cooperation with Norway, or the Makanjira Road we are ready to develop through our cooperation with Saudi Arabia, or the investments we are making to strengthen education and governance institutions through our cooperation with the United Kingdom, or the solar power plants that we have developed through our cooperation with Japan, or the extended credit facility from the International Monetary Fund that has unlocked access to the World Bank's and IDEA support through cooperation with developing partners.